Oh my goodness. Oh my, preach it, my love. Did you get the point? You delivered the message. Oh, thank you. And you too, Bob, between the two of you. Wow. Yeah. I love it. Don't you love it? It starts out, you got free will, and then you got no choice? Not sure I'm ready for that, right? Oh, my goodness. It's such a great reminder that we have free will, period, and we've got no choice about the matter, and we're going to explore that today. That's a big idea. It's a big idea, and we all can say, oh, that's really terrific, that's really swell, but then we start thinking about something that's going on in our lives today, and you mean I got free will about that too? You mean I haven't got any choice except it's all up to me? Well, I'd like you to keep whatever thing might have popped up in your mind. I mean, I have a couple that popped up in my mind that I, would like to say, well, I know I've got free will in the big picture, but about this little thing, I have no choice. Someone else has done it to me and I can't, or I'm helpless, or it's bigger than me. I got a couple of those too. Keep that in mind, whatever it is, whatever might have come up, because we're talking today, and see how what I'm going to be saying applies to that, and see how you can tease it apart and find freedom, free will, choice. The operative word in that song is free. And no surprise, this month of July, as we're celebrating the 4th of July and our nation's freedom, my attention always turns to individual freedom. We were celebrating the collective freedom of our country and the amazing experience of that. Then I always say, well, and what does this mean to me? Personal freedom. What does it mean to us as we navigate our spiritual path? Dr. Ernest Holmes, the architect of our philosophy and teaching, in the very first page of the Science of Mind textbook, wrote, the divine plan is one of freedom. He wrote also, freedom is the birthright of every living soul. Now, he expands on that by saying this. He says, to suppose that the creative intelligence of the universe would create us in bondage and leave us bound would be to dishonor the creative power which we call God. He continues and says, freedom is the birthright of every living soul. All instinctively feel it. The inherent nature of every person is forever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom. So, he says, we should do well to listen to this inner voice, this inner nudge to freedom, for it tells us of a freedom that the soul craves. It's fundamental to our spiritual journey, recognizing our innate soul's urge to express the freedom that it is. And so this month's theme is set yourself free. Set yourself free. Not look for someone to set you free. Not look for all your problems to go away so then you'll be free. It's set yourself free. How do we do that? Well, again, Dr. Holmes writes, we claim our freedom, we set ourselves free, when we seek to create no limitation for ourselves and are convinced that we can use the creative mind of God. Listen to that. When we create no limitation for ourselves. He's not saying when we don't have anything outside that seems in the way. He says when we create no limitation for ourselves, and how can we do that? We're convinced that we can and do use the creative mind of God. Oh, well, now that you mentioned it, Holmes, that's easy. I can do that. Well, maybe it might be a little more challenging. But he continues on, and he says, freedom means to eliminate from consciousness, from our thinking, all those things which bind and limit the free flowing of the divine spirit through us. You know that feeling of when you just feel that freedom flowing through you. He says, freedom means to eliminate in our consciousness everything that limits that. because it is the divine spirit flowing through us. And he ends it up by saying, it means to exercise the faculty of personal choice. As Jay sang, as Bob played, free will. Exercise our choice to experience that inner freedom. So what might that look like in our lives? Well, it occurs to me that very often when we contemplate freedom for ourselves personally, it goes something like this. Well, I'd be free if only, or if only I could be free from this situation, this condition, this relationship, this illness, this pain, this stress, this overwhelming amount of work, and you can fill in the blanks. Sure, I'd be free if I could be free from. But I can tell you, when I am in that frame of mind, if I'd be free, if I believe it, but I'm not there, and if this thing would change, then I would be free. When I'm in that frame of mind, I'm less creative, less joyful, less kind, less loving. I'm less productive, less resourceful, I'm less energized, and more. Can you agree? Doesn't that, when you're feeling burdened and not free, everything is constricted. So, what is bothering you today? What's on your mind? What might be that one thing that's just, if only? Worry, framed in worry, in fear, in anxiety. You probably do not feel free when you think about it. And you would no doubt love to be free from that issue, that problem, that pain, that dilemma. And in the meantime, what that kind of looks like is, complaining. Why does this always happen to me? Oh no, not again. Feeling stressed, hurting. If only this would stop. And the biggie running through all of that is resistance. Even though we know that what we resist persists. But when we're feeling that burdensome something, when we're complaining, when we're whining about why does this always happen to me and all of the things I just mentioned, there's resistance too. And all of that feels anything but free. But here's the thing, we are so intent on being free from that we're not realizing what's waiting for us when we find that we're free. When we actually break free, we haven't even thought about that. We're not clear on, what do we want when we get free? Once I'm free from, what's next? What do I want to be free to do, be, have, experience? So today I'm talking more about shifting our attention then from all the reasons and things I want to be free from to moving forward. I want to be free to, because here's a piece of great news. When you're turning your attention toward instead of behind, from, if only, life is on your side by its very nature. Life keeps moving forward. It supports you irresistibly in becoming free. Isn't that wonderful to know that life is on our side? Life's impulse is moving us forward. So when we turn our attention to being free to, instead of stuck in free from, we have all the power of the universe in our favor. Life by its very nature just keeps evolving into new and greater versions of itself, and that would mean you too. You've seen it, the little flower that finds its way through a crack in the cement. That's life. Intent on always expressing and expanding. So as we turn our attention forward, then life is on our side. And so here's what I want to talk about today, that distinction. If we're only trying to be free from, in other words, if we're always being pushed by our pain, because generally it's pretty painful when we're feeling like, if I could just get out of this, if this would just stop. If we continue to be pushed by that pain and obsessed with if only I were free of the pain of the situation, we are never, ever, ever going to be truly free, because we'll keep on being pushed by our pain from one painful situation to another. Have you experienced that ever or noticed? Because we have that pain, I'm calling it our pain-shaped paradigm. Our consciousness just knows pain, and it keeps creating and replicating corresponding situations until our attention shifts. And I know it's not easy all the time, because the pain can be pretty acute and hard to shift our attention from that. But when we can take a look forward, it's like letting a little bit of light in, a little bit of air, a little bit of oxygen, and then it expands. So if we're pulled then instead by our vision, our new paradigm of being free to, in whatever way, whatever expression, it means we're moving in the direction of life expressing as us. There's that quote from Anais Nin about the rosebud, you know. And there came a day when the pain of remaining tight in the bud became greater than the risk it took to open. Raymond Charles Barker, who was also an early science of mind teacher, minister, probably up until about the 80s. And he was a student of Ernest Holmes, and he wrote many books. And one of the things he said, I love the way he always said things so succinctly. He said, at the center of you, deep down under all the layers that have been put upon it, is a freedom of life which is seeking to express. Underneath all those layers, what layers is he talking about? Well, layers of fear and self-doubt and stories of past hurts and society's collective beliefs in limitations of all kinds. Under all those layers, when sometimes it can be, years and years of accumulation, it can feel pretty daunting. But underneath them, never, ever, ever going away, is a freedom of life which is always seeking to express. It's always there. It is that desire to be free to. So, I have 3 suggestions about how we can do this in our lives. How can I move then from where I seem to be just blocking my vision because I've got this thing going on or many things going on. I do not feel free. How can we shift our attention? Well, one of the things that holds us back, I think, is we are not sure just what we want when we think about being free to. That makes sense, but I don't know what that would be. I know I want to be free from this situation, but I'm not quite sure what the to part would be for me, what it would look like. So I will say focus on the qualities or the verbs of that experience that you desire when you think about yourself being free. It could be being free to create something beautiful, free to alleviate the suffering of others, free to teach and guide, free to share laughter and humor, free to connect with others in a new way. You see what I mean? It's general, and yet it has a playground for you, and you can start looking in that direction instead of getting hung up. Well, until I have all the details, I guess I better stay stuck. I want to be free to express these things. See, because these are qualities of aliveness, of life's forward energy. And the specifics will be revealed to you as you move along. It's very interesting. I've noticed that when I let go of waiting until I know all the details and start with that larger container, I kind of find the details show up in ways that I might not have expected. In fact, that's a big part of it. Pay attention, because as it starts to get some focus, it may not look at all like you thought it would. It may not look at all like you thought it should. Or it may be really, really, really subtle. Example. I was talking with a practitioner this week, And we were talking about she said was asking me to know some certain qualities and things for her. And she said, what would you like me to know for you? And freedom popped out of my mouth. That was it, freedom. I didn't go to freedom in or freedom about or free. I just said freedom. Because that works too. That works. And so that was it. We ended our conversation. And I didn't think about it a whole lot anymore, because that's the thing. I don't want to overthink it. Whenever you do this, you do it and let it go. Don't overthink it. And yet pay attention. Well, it took me a little while. I'm still a slow learner, in case you need to know that. I'm kind of a work in progress still. So it was like a day later when I realized, for some odd reason, I had been able to tackle a huge cleaning, organizing, purging project that I have been stressing about for years, I swear. It's one of those, I got to get to that sometime. It's in the garage, it's in a few boxes. And I did it. I did it. I don't know. I just didn't even think about it, except it was certainly, after putting it off for years and years and years and delaying it. But the most important thing is I felt so free. It's done. I thought, oh, wait, connect those dots, Karen. You asked for some freedom support here. That's how life is in our favor. It was so wonderful. It just gave me a giggle. I had to let her know that, too, because sometimes, we're looking for the great big bolt of lightning from the sky. And sometimes it's just those little subtle things, and which was, as a matter of fact, huge for me. In fact, by then I was on such a roll, I can't even begin to tell you the things I started to clear out. I'm still in it. I'm still getting some mileage out of that one affirmation, that one word, freedom. So pay attention. Okay, the second way to do this, first is determine the qualities of and the verbiage of expression that you want to be free to show up as, and pay attention. The second is use your imagination, and that could be a whole seminar. Imagination is so powerful, but here's what I like to focus on. Something that came to me in the last few years to my attention. Neville Goddard. Neville Goddard was a New Thought teacher, thinker, writer, again about a contemporary of Ernest Holmes, probably in that era. And he wrote about this. He said, using your imagination, but listen carefully to what he said. Imagination is your ability to assume the feeling of a greater life. We can do that. A greater concept of yourself. And then he goes on and says, the future becomes the present when you imagine, feel, and assume that you already are that which you want to be. Not that you have a clear picture of what you will feel like when, but step into that feeling of it's already happened. I'm already freely expressing in the area that I feel moved. That takes some practice. It's powerful. There's a huge difference between, and not to discount the importance of having a clear idea of how I will feel when, but how about the day after it's happened? That's the place to go. Be in that feeling. Wayne Dyer wrote a book fairly recently bringing that concept up to date in a very effective way. It's called Wishes Fulfilled. If you want to explore that whole practice, I recommend you pick up that book, or you can Google Neville Goddard and find a lot of information, a lot of his words on this too. So that's the second thing. Use your imagination as you're thinking, I want to be free from, but now I'm trying to turn my attention. What do I want to be free to express? And the third thing is this. Maybe your thing, your issue that you so desperately want to be free from is so, it seems so huge. Now remember, in the infinite, in the divine, there's no big or small, but we make it up. We believe collectively humanity has, there are big issues and then there are little issues. In God, it's all the same. But if yours is like that, feeling like it's so big, then, well, how about this? Make lemonade out of those lemons, or embrace it. And there is freedom in embracing that. And here I'm going to share with you a personal story about a dear, dear friend of mine. Some of you know him. He lives in New Jersey. His name is Alan Stevenson, and this is with his permission, and his partner, his husband, Joel Fotinas, and their son, Rafi, who's now 16 years old. The beautiful family, and just successful in every way. And then Alan was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And this was 9 years ago. And he gave a speech. And I'm just going to give you part of it. But it speaks to what we're talking about. It speaks to embracing and still finding freedom, even though the condition has not gone away. And he's still going strong, by the way. It was 9 years ago that he was diagnosed. So he said, over 9 years ago, I heard those life-changing words, "You have Parkinson's disease." I was shocked to learn that at only 50 years old, I could be diagnosed with Parkinson's, an illness that I always thought of as an old person's disease. While my diagnosis story is far from unique, I have been told that my reaction to that diagnosis was indeed unique, because I have never asked, why me? I've never allowed myself to wallow in self-pity or even think of myself as a victim. Instead, my first reaction was, why not me? I'm strong. I can handle this. Let's start working on this today. Right away, moving from free from to free to. He said, at the time, my son was all of 7 years old, so I was thinking, I've got to stick around and help this incredible little boy grow into an incredible young man. But even though I've never asked, why me, I still had many of the same questions and difficulties that I'm sure many of you have had. This is an audience of people with Parkinson's or their caregivers or workers in the field. He said, the reason I'm here in front of you today is to share something with you that I am very passionate about, that in spite of everything, you can live well with Parkinson's disease. I've been living well with PD, he calls it for short, for just over 9 years. And then he goes on, Alan, you almost have to know him to appreciate this, but he has a kind of a wry way of looking at life sometimes, wry sense of humor, but he speaks the truth inside of all that. So he said, now what motivational talk would be complete without inspirational quotes and affirmations? So with that in mind, he said, let's start out with an affirmation for the whole group, in unison, with our very loudest from-the-gut voice. Repeat it for all of New Jersey to hear. Parkinson's sucks. Well, that alleviated a lot of the tension right there. He said, if you stop at that thought, though, life looks pretty bleak because you're stuck in the free from. So instead of worrying about all the things you can't do with Parkinson's, I invite you to look at all the things you can do with Parkinson's. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me, I invite you to ask, why did this happen for me? That's free too. If we aren't pleased with how our life is going, then we have the power to change it. What message, he said, are you giving yourself about your Parkinson's? It's easy to get into that place of feeling sorry for ourselves, so how can we change it? He says, well, here's something that I've found works for me. Change your story, change your life. If at any given moment, we can choose to see things in a new light, how would our life change if we actually focused on the gift of Parkinson's? Yes, he says, I said gift. Lemonade. Well, I can promise you, I'd be the first in line for a cure. I can honestly tell you that my life has been immeasurably made better, and I'm a better person since being diagnosed. It's given me empathy and caring and fortitude and has forced me to realign the priorities of my life. A disease such as PD can either stop you dead in your tracks, free from, stay there, free from, or it can force you to re-examine your life and your priorities. And for that gift, I am grateful. Free to. So he goes on, he says, I've always wanted to travel. So get this, in the past few years, since he was diagnosed, I've been to Argentina, Mexico, Ireland twice, London twice, Guatemala, Paris, Amsterdam, Belgium, Czechoslovakia, and Switzerland. And this is with a teenage son, by the way. Now he's a teenager, but, it's a family life besides. He and his family have gone on all of these trips, all of them together. He said, in Mexico, I, a man with PD, climbed to the very top of the tallest pyramid in the world. In London, I negotiated the tube, the subway, and traveled by myself all over the city. Other things that I have done that have helped me to change and take charge of my life with PD, I've taken part in lots and lots of studies and therapy trials. He's done everything from a study about yoga and PD, Tai Chi and PD, dancing with PD, nutrition, several cognitive studies, as well as genetic testing. All of this, he says, gives me a sense that I'm doing everything I can, not to mention the joy that I get from giving back to my community. I also became a research advocate with the Parkinson's Foundation, which has helped me to recruit and encourage others to participate in trials and studies. And here's a part I got to witness. 3 times weekly, you'll find me working out at Rock Steady Boxing in North Jersey. He invited me when I went to visit them last year to go to the session with them. So I did. And I kind of stayed in the corner, because everybody in their boxing gloves and ready to go. And so the coach asked me if I would be the timer for one of the exercises. She would normally time them, but this was one exercise that she wanted to be doing with them. Okay, got my phone. I'm ready to go. So they're doing the exercise, and she's doing it, and after a while she said, how much more time do we have? And I said, oh, was I supposed to start the time? I was almost drummed out of the There were no lives lost. But I was not asked to be timer anymore. He says, our coach puts us through paces that challenge us both mentally and physically, and although we may be drenched with sweat and look like the living dead as we leave, most of us can't wait till the next session. I walk away a different man than the one I dragged in. And to add to that, he said, I put together a group of walkers, including folks from the boxing, Rock Steady Boxing, Allen's Angels, and every year they march in New York's Central Park Unity Walk in support of research and fundraising for Parkinson's. So he says, do not let yourself be limited by PD. In other words, don't be stuck in the free from. Change your story, free to. In fact, he said, if you change your story enough, like I have and like I continue to, you may find that it creates a bigger life for you, not a smaller one. And it has to, doesn't it? Because life is on his side. And so he finally says, in my opinion, there is no better gift than giving. And from a purely selfish standpoint, nothing makes me feel as good. It makes me feel like I'm part of a story being currently written about PD research and hopefully finding a cure. It's not about what we can't do, dwelling on free from, but what we can do with Parkinson's, being free to. Not asking, why did this happen to me, but asking, how can I now live well with PD? Now that's freedom. Not from, but freedom to. So your story might not be as dramatic as this, but just notice this week the countless times, in fact, each day, the little things when you might need to remind yourself, it's not about what I want to be free from, but what is it I want to do, to be, to express, to be free to? How do I want to be free to show up as life expressing? This is setting yourself free. And remember, life is on your side. And so, as Jay's going to sing for us now, there ain't no stopping us now, is there?
That's right.
All right, come tell us. Thank you.